Okay, well, hi. Welcome. I'm Bill Gray. This is Minnesota Homeownership Center's Welcome Home podcast, and we are on episode 5. Today, we have a really special guest on the program, Minnesota Housing's Assistant Commissioner for Single Family Housing, Kayla Schuchman. Welcome, Kayla. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So let's jump right in because we've got a great opportunity today to talk about policies, some things like that. You took on this position pretty recently because I know you were with the city of Minneapolis and some other things before that. You've got a lot of ideas, a lot of experience in this space. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in this kind of work.
Yeah, sure. So I joined Minnesota Housing in January. So it's been just over 5 months. I'm still new, still learning the ropes and getting my feet wet, but have such a great team and some really great work in progress already. So came to Minnesota Housing from the city of St. Paul. We won't hold it against you that you said city of Minneapolis.
Oh, sorry about that.
But I was the housing director for the city of St. Paul under Mayor Carter for the last 3 years prior to taking on this role, and had the opportunity to implement a new housing trust fund and some other great work of the mayor and the city council in St. Paul, both on the rental housing side and home ownership side. So a lot of great work happening over there, and great opportunity to roll out some programming on single family down payment assistance and some other work that we had underway for community land trusts and accessory dwelling units. Just a great opportunity.
Very cool.
So before that, I worked as an affordable housing developer for Common Bond Communities.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I was actually at Minnesota Housing for 9 years.
Oh,
working on the multifamily side.
okay.
So just have a passion around affordable housing. I started my career actually at Minneapolis Public Housing Authority.
Mm-hmm.
My first job out of college was in finance. And I studied economics and really was drawn to doing something that would benefit our community and doing something that would be a part of solving some of the challenges that our communities and our state face. So I didn't want to do economics or finance at a company where I wasn't connected to the mission, and for me that mission has always been a really important driver for my career. I grew up without a lot of money, and really saw sort of what it looks like for families that work incredibly hard and can't get ahead. And I also saw, was lucky to see what it looks like when you get help and when you get stable housing and when you get resources that help you afford other things in your family budget, whether that's food, whether
Right.
that's investing in your education as a parent. And also, being able to just reduce a little stress in your life.
Right.
So I know from my own experience that housing is just really foundational for everything else in life. And I also saw, once I was an adult, sort of what homeownership meant to families that some of my colleagues at McAllister College, where I went to school, came from very different backgrounds.
Sure.
And they came in and some of them were, paying for college out of pocket.
Yeah.
And weren't worried about, work study and student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw how powerful homeownership was in the experience of sending your children to college and just sort of the impact of family wealth and what that means for all of the generations that follow. So it might mean that you're able to send your kids to a really expensive college. It might mean that once your kids get there, they're able to take on unpaid internships and really advance their career goals and their hopes and dreams. And when I was sort of freshly out of college, I bought a house with my now husband.
Uh-huh.
And it's just been a really, for me, when you see how connected the wealth gap is to all of the problems in our society.
Right.
And when you see and understand that home ownership is one of the most prevalent ways that we build wealth in our society, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Harvard study that found that every year of home ownership results in another $10,000 of family wealth. So I really bring all of those personal experiences into the work. And I think homeownership and addressing that wealth gap is an opportunity to provide affordable housing in a way that really gets at some of the root disparities that are handed down from generation to generation to generation.
Yeah. I think that's really important for folks to know. I mean, someone like you're taking on this challenge from a position of having experienced some of the impacts for yourself that, growing up without some of the benefits of home ownership has. And so I don't know. It just seems like a really good place to be coming from as you're the assistant commissioner for single family housing in Minnesota. It's a big job, but you're grounded in your experience and what you're bringing to the table. So
yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to look around at all of the tables that are a part of our policy making realm, and to make sure that we do have people who have different life experiences and represent different communities. And, everyone is a part of the needs to be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
But having people who have diverse experiences, I think is so important.
Yeah. Okay, so hot topic right now, Home Help Minnesota. This is the program going on right now to help Minnesota homeowners behind on their homeownership expenses to keep their homes and avoid foreclosure. I know the original application date was it this Friday, but you told me it's being extended now. Let's talk about the program. How does it work? How do you apply? What does it do? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Home Help MN is a $109 million stimulus program from the federal government that Minnesota Housing received. We launched the program May 17th with the original application date June 17th. The applications have been coming in, and we've started to make payments. We know that there is substantial need out there, and we have additional resources left. So we've extended the deadline through August 17th. Because
a lot of homeowners out there are still negatively impacted financially by COVID and COVID related things. It is a very uneven recovery. It's something that we've been saying for a long time, and it's still true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think while it, sometimes can feel like we're far away from the crisis, not all of our families have been able to catch up, even if they have, recovered from whatever that initial impact was.
Right.
So if a homeowner, had a reduction in income or an increase in living expenses, it could be that your childcare costs went up.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of us were scrambling to figure out how to, make sure our kids were taken care of. And sometimes that meant, staying home from work. And sometimes that meant seeking out childcare when school wasn't available.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you don't have to be unemployed. You don't have to have had COVID. You just need to have been impacted by COVID and had that result in a financial hardship.
Yeah.
And be currently past due on your mortgage or other housing related expenses. Could be taxes, insurance, manufactured home lot rent, HOA fees. And our program, might be able to help with your expenses up to $35,000 per household.
Mm-hmm.
It's assistance that doesn't have to be paid back.
Mm-hmm.
So we really want families to know that this resource is out there, and to know that even if you haven't, been somebody who's had to receive help in the past, or who's, used to taking advantage of resources like this, if you haven't been connected to affordable housing or benefits, this program is very different, and
Yeah.
it's for the majority of Minnesotans in terms of income level.
Yeah.
And there are so many people in this bucket, whether you're a month past due or whether you're 12 months past due.
Right.
There's assistance that could help.
Well, and it's designed is there so that we don't see a wave of foreclosures, and we think of the economic crisis in 08, 09. That really impacted BIPOC households maybe more than white households, just because of income levels and how all that works.
Yeah.
And we've got one of the worst gaps in the country as far as home ownership goes already.
Yeah.
And we want to try to avoid that. So
Absolutely.
well, that's good that the program's out there. There's the website, homehelpmin.org. And then there's a phone number if that works better for you. If you want information on this program,
Yes.
that's where you should reach out to. And what's the new deadline again?
The new deadline is August 17th. Please don't wait to apply.
Right.
It's possible that the assistance will go and sort of be spent before that deadline. So please call. Please send an email if you have questions. We have language assistance available. So the call center is prepared to answer questions in multiple languages, and we have the application translated in 4 languages.
Right. And this is a statewide program. It's not like some of the other ones that were out there earlier this year and late last year, specifically, a city or a county. This is statewide.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So literally could be a home saver for Minnesotans still struggling from the pandemic related setbacks. I want to mention as well, the Homeownership Center's own free foreclosure prevention advising services. So while we don't have financial resources, we do have the advisor services where they can sit down and plot a course for you for a sustained recovery. Again, it's free of charge, based on your own personal financial circumstances. Info on that is available at our website at hocmn.org. So Kayla, I said we should talk about the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance here as well. Listeners and viewers can learn more about the HOA in episode 2 of our podcast. The HOA was convened by the center and by your office at Minnesota Housing. So that's kind of a big deal. So tell us why you see this effort as an agency priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's really important to put focused effort into convening all of the partners that impact homeownership, and the homeownership have the potential to reduce the homeownership gap in Minnesota. We know that we got to this place of a homeownership gap through decades and decades of policy, intentionally discriminatory policy, both from the government side, discrimination from, parties across Minnesota and across the United States.
Restrictive covenants, redlining.
Yep. So we know that it's going to take really strong coordinated effort to undo all of that work that got us to this place. And the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance just brings so many important stakeholders and people who have, some ability to address the gap, brings them together.
Yeah.
And it gets us talking about the problem so that we all understand, how we got here and what it's happening in the current day environment that is still contributing to the gap, and to engage around solutions and what can each of us from our seats do to improve things. And that is so powerful. Minnesota Housing, of course, we operate as a lender and we have lending products, but we serve, we're a small player in the market.
Right.
We have 6.5% share in Minnesota. And so if we're going to really move the needle on the homeownership gap, it needs to be all of us coming together who have the ability to solve this. And that's just exactly what the
Yeah.
Homeownership Opportunity Alliance does.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've got maybe 200 or 300 people at this point in the industry. Everybody from loan officers to realtors to other nonprofits, just kind of working together. While redlining and restrictive covenants and all that isn't legal anymore, we are stuck with the legacy of it, and not only the legacy that it happened, which is shameful and whatnot, but the legacy of the results of it, which is that we have one of the worst gaps in the country. And that's not to say this didn't happen everywhere, because it did.
Right.
For whatever reason, our gap is a little worse than it is in other places. But this group of like-minded individuals can talk about things and get into some of the systemic problems that are still with us. So we talk about systemic racism. What that means is that the way that certain things in the system work are unintentionally perpetuating some of this stuff. So it reminds me, the hottest topic right now for the HOA is what do you call it? Appraisals.
Yep.
And the whole idea, I mean, there's news stories out there. They do an appraisal of a BIPOC household. It comes in at one number, and then they take down all the pictures and whatnot, and they do another appraisal, and it's a completely different number. And some of that is baked into the system, and some of it is maybe unintentional bias and things like that. So. But if you look at the way that appraisals work, it's based on comps, and comps are looking at the value of things that have been affected all the way back to redlining, and they are what they are because. And so, how do you get beyond some of that stuff? Yeah. And so that's what the HOA kind of works with, these systemic problems that we kind of need to figure out how to get around some of these constraints that are still impacting the process.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to understand sort of the legacy pieces, and to also recognize how they're still with us, just like you described with appraisal bias. And we know that there are some folks really interested in addressing and tackling that problem. And it's the HOA gives us that platform to bring people together and to do that work. Yeah. We know that there's a working paper that the Federal Reserve is working on that found that even controlling for income and credit score, that there's a disparity in lender denial rates among households of color compared to white households. And even setting aside, current discriminatory practices, we know that all of those past things, redlining, building freeways through thriving Black communities, that all of those legacies still have present day impacts. And, when families' homes were literally taken to build a freeway, that wealth disappeared. And so whereas a white family may have sort of passed along wealth and inheritance generation to generation since, say Rondo was split, that wealth was taken from Black communities. So even things like the ability to bring down payment assistance. So at Minnesota Housing, we are very focused on how we can impact the homeownership gap with our own products and engaging through the HOA. Yeah.
Well, very good. It's such a big thing to try to tackle. So I told you our last topic would be a big one. It's a doozy. Let's talk about the gap between white and BIPOC households. We talked about some of how it developed and that kind of thing. But what can be done about it? And I know that you are working on this issue, and you have some stats and some things that you can point to. So let's get into that a little bit. I'll let you just take it in whatever direction you want here.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we are tracking the homeownership gap really closely. As you mentioned, Minnesota has one of the largest gaps in the nation. So while white households own at a rate of around 77%, households of color are owning at around 44%, and that's even more disparate for Black households. So current homeownership rate of around 25%. So that's a disparity of 51%. That is enormous. So we at Minnesota Housing set a strategic goal to, with our resources, to increase our lending to Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Our strategic goal is that by 2023, 40% of our first-time homebuyer mortgages will go to households of color. I think starting at that level with setting a goal, because I think we are really at this point in 2022, and I think especially coming out of the last couple of years where we've had really a racial reckoning and uprising in Minneapolis, we have talked about the problem, and we have looked at it from different angles, and we have analyzed that problem to death. And it's important that we keep talking about the problem. But what comes next is even more critical to making an impact. And so we have set the goal. We are going to measure ourselves against that goal. And I'm really pleased to report that we have made great progress. We have done $1 billion of lending in the last year, which it's hard for me to say B.
Right.
Billion is incredible. Our team has done great work in our network of participating lenders and all of the partners.
6% of the market. So it gives you an idea how big the market is. Yep.
Yes. And the lending that we have done this year, our lending is on track to support Black, Indigenous, people of color at 40% of our first-time homebuyer mortgages. So we're really pleased with the progress we've seen. And that's come through our partners, our homeownership advisors, realtors, lenders. Everyone who is engaged in being a part of the solution is a part of that success. We also have done some really intentional targeting with our down payment assistance. So, all of our borrowers are basically eligible to get down payment assistance in one form or another. But with our more targeted, more favorable, more affordable down payment assistance, we've been really strategic about who are we going to serve with this resource. And that has really allowed us to achieve a really strong market share of our lending going to Black, Indigenous, people of color. So we're really pleased with that. 40% of our first-time mortgages are going to people of color, and that's about double what the broader market is doing here in Minnesota. We're really pleased with that, and we're also already asking ourselves, and what's next? And how do we maintain that as the market changes and interest rates increase and prices in the market are challenges? And how do we make sure we do that sustainably? So looking at the whole picture there.
I mean, the biggest thing for me as you're trying to understand this issue is if you can afford full freight rent, you can afford a mortgage. The problem is qualifying for a mortgage because it's complicated. But our advisors at the Homeownership Center can walk you through that, give you your own roadmap for your own situation on how to achieve that. And then we talk about down payment assistance. A lot of times down payment assistance it's not necessarily free money. It's something tacked on to the end of the loan that's maybe paid off at the end or forgiven over 20 years if you keep the house for that long, that kind of thing. So these are legitimate efforts to help people get over that hurdle that has kept them from participating in wealth building so that we can have a more equitable society, and frankly, a more equitable system that works for everybody. It's not like it's going to stop working for some people. It's just going to work
Right.
for more people.
Right. Just bring more people
Yeah.
into it. And I think you're exactly right to talk about the sort of demystifying the process, because I think that's a big part of it. And helping people see themselves in homeownership, because in our history as a country, homeownership has sort of been associated with the American dream, and it's been a part of the American dream, and we know that for communities of color who've been shut out of sort of the American dream, it can be hard to really want to explore homeownership or to see yourself in that. But there is an enormous opportunity, and it is in reach for many of our Black and Brown residents in Minnesota. We know that we are becoming more diverse as a state, and we know that there are just tens of thousands of potentially income eligible residents in our state that are people of color that are between the age of 25 and 44 that could afford homeownership.
We did that research, didn't we? Yeah.
Yep. And we are also investing in homeownership education and counseling, because you're exactly right. It is complex, and understanding what sustainable homeownership looks like and what it takes to start that journey and how to get ready for homeownership, because sometimes it's a process.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's building credit and saving resources and taking some other steps before someone might be eligible. So we're investing also in homeownership education and really support the work of the Homeownership Center and the advisors.
I like what you said, demystifying the process, because it's like any of these mind-boggling processes, like, I don't know, long-term care. It's like you don't know about it till you need it, and then it's like, wow, is this ever complicated? Or Medicare or something, taxes. It's like, but we've got homeownership advisors who can walk you through the process. It's free. The home buyer education, actually, it's June. There's free classes right now in June. Every June for Homeownership Month, our network of partners offer the class for free. Otherwise, I think it's only $25 or something, maybe 40. I don't know exactly. It might vary. But it's an 8-hour class that walks you through everything from the mortgage process to working with a realtor to the home inspector and all this stuff. Super valuable. Wish I had known it when I was buying my first house, because I didn't know what I was doing.
I was thinking the same thing, Bill.
I think I signed a bunch of papers in a Dairy Queen somewhere, and I was like, well, hope that works out.
Yep.
It did, but it's scary, and rightly so. But again, my thinking is, if you can afford full freight rent right now in this market, you can afford a mortgage. You just need some guidance and going through that process. And here's the other thing. Yes, inventory is really slim right now. Yeah, prices are high right now. The experts don't think there's going to be any repeat of the 08-09 business, because demand is strong and inventory isn't there. It's a totally different situation. And the reason I say this isn't to be like, oh, it's too hard right now. It's not. And also, you can get ready now so that you can be ready later on when the opportunity is there for you. So, like Kayla said, the process might take a little while. Get ready so you can be ready when the time comes.
Absolutely.
So,
and we continue to see our home buyers be successful, even in the current conditions. So our current lending production, it remains strong, and we are so pleased to see that Black, Indigenous people of color continue to be able to make the numbers work. And we know that there are lenders and realtors and advisors that are helping people continue to be successful in the market today.
Well, we're really thankful that you're there at Minnesota Housing, and love working with you. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Bill.
So, well, I think that's about all the time we have. I really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come down here and do this. It's much appreciated. I'll say my normal stuff here. Join me next time when we'll be talking about the State of Asia America Housing Report by the Asian Real Estate Association of America. We'll bring in the president of the Minnesota chapter of ARIA to talk about that. I want to acknowledge our sponsors as usual: Associated Bank, Midwest One Bank, and Old National Bank. Our sincere thanks to each of these organizations for their support. And with that, I think we'll call it a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Kayla.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Great to be
Bye-bye.
here.
So yeah, that's kind of how it works. And then it just kind of...